Welcome to On a Way with Beryl Botman, in conversation with Charlene Nissen. Charlene, you are an inclusive education practitioner, and that is what you're doing these days and the last phase of your career. But the two of us go way back. We became friends when you were Charlene Wessels and I was Beryl van der Schols. You remember those days?
Of course I do.
So we studied together at UCT. We did our post undergraduate courses as well as our teachers' qualifications.
Yeah.
And then our paths really split for a short while until we had children. And our children are, I think Matthew is just older than Ilse.
Younger, actually.
Younger.
Yes, I think she was born in January.
Yes.
And he was born in October.
Okay, so
Yes,
she came first.
That's
and
right.
that's when we connected
Again, yes.
again. So at that time, I was still unmarried and you were married to Chris.
Yeah.
And then from there, your life went in a different direction. I think you went to the Eastern Cape.
Yes, Grafrenet.
When was that when Matthew was still small, or was that before Matthew was born?
No, that's actually before Matthew was born, because remember when we got married, then we moved to Grafrenet because Chris was working there and I got a job there teaching as well. And then, so Matthew was only born that following year after we came back to Cape Town. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember all of that because, it's our friendship is over, it's about 45 years.
46 thereabouts.
46 years.
Yeah.
So it's a long time.
Yeah, definitely.
So I know I went and I taught at Lavender Hill and I stayed there for 13 years. How did your initial career go?
Yes, yeah. From the time, when we finished at UCT, I got my first job was in Manenberg, and I think the other day when we were together, we were actually reflecting on our choices of the schools that we chose to go to, because we very much came from university, ready to serve the community. And we saw teaching as our contribution to the struggle. That was a site of struggle for us. And so, so I started in Manenberg, and I taught for 2 years, and then I got married and then went to teach in Grafrenet. Grafrenet was a bit eventful because I only taught for 6 months, because within the first few weeks of starting to teach, Chris was arrested and detained because it was the state of emergency. In 1985, and then a few weeks later, I was arrested. So then the rest of that year, I spent in prison, and then we were released at the end of the year in December, and then I went back to teaching, and then I taught until January, from January to June, and then there was rumors of another state of emergency coming, and then I was pregnant. And we decided that there was no ways that I was going to go pregnant and into prison again. And so we left middle of the night, very dramatic story. Middle of the night we left and came back to Cape Town.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Matthew was born shortly after that, in that year. Yeah, and then when I was back in Cape Town, I started teaching at Mitchell's Plain, and I spent a good 15, 16 years there until I eventually left. And then, like you, also then joined the education department, and worked in learning support for quite a while.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's roughly my teaching.
So it's very unique in terms of your urban and rural experience that you had, but we did similar. It was our experiences were similar in that we were in the, as we call it, the townships where there were many social challenges on all the levels that there could be social challenges. And you spoke about how we discussed this quite recently, and I hope we can just have a short. At the end of our conversation, we can just talk about that in terms also of our friendship.
Yes.
So, in terms of how you changed or developed your career, was that the time that you started specializing in a focus that was different to what you were used to, and how did that come about?
Yeah, that was actually there were two catalysts actually to me changing my direction in terms of, because I was a high school teacher. We both trained high school teachers together, and I was teaching English, Afrikaans, and then whatever else they would throw at you. I taught history, I taught accounting,
Yes.
whatever was the need. And then teaching language, I started realizing how learners were actually struggling with reading and writing, coming into high school and not knowing how to read and write. And I found it frustrating, and I thought, I'm sure I can find out more. How can I start really helping them? But there's the second catalyst, and that's the personal one, is that our son was born with cerebral palsy, our middle son. And as a result of that, I became more interested in specialized education, and then inclusive education, which followed, specialized education. And in fact, we actually did a very bold step to actually take him out of a special school and put him into a normal small school, which was unheard of at the time. Even people who are today in the forefront of inclusive education were at that school, they advised me and said, no, this is not a good thing to do. And please, you can just come back, But we just found that the environment was just so stifling.
Yeah.
There was not enough expectation. And this, they didn't bother,
Yes.
in many respects, because, you're disabled. No, you'll never, we just keeping you busy here. That was the sense that I had. And and so then those were the things that got me thinking about, I think I'd like to know more. And that's when I actually did a diploma in remedial education at Stellenbosch University, followed up with B.Ed honors, and then a master's. Yeah, and then that was, that's when I really got into the inclusive education.
Yeah, when you spoke about your pregnancy with Matthew, now that was the same time that was I was pregnant in 1985.
Yes, that's right.
With my first child, and so it was in that same time, and I think that was very, very dangerous times. And our very close friend has also been detained here in the city, as along with many others. Russell was detained at that same time. And in a way, as you have made that decision that because of your pregnancy, you can't be in dangerous situation. And so I think I was very protected by my comrades and my colleagues. That they wouldn't allow me to go and be and participate when they think that it's not. And so that really helped me. And so those were very rough times, very turmoil times.
That's right.
Do you think, when you listen to how people relate and speak about how different life is in South Africa after democracy, and many people think that and say how much better it was then. Do you also share that sentiment? Or about how life was then and now?
Yeah, I find it so interesting, because sometimes I wonder if we all lived through the same times. Because I mean, we grew up. We grew up with apartheid dictating our lives. We couldn't go to school. We had to go to a particular school. We had to live somewhere. Everything step was decided for us. We went to UCT. We only went to UCT because we had to get a permit. That's what it was like, And so I think people who want to talk and say, oh, the good old days were better, I just think they're fooling themselves completely. And I think we need to be grateful for what has happened in our country. Yes, it is not exactly, it is not perfect, but...
And we could have been it could have been better had we done things differently
Yes.
and stick to the principles that we were really striving towards
At that time, completely.
At the time. I
Yes,
think
I fully agree.
and we could have been 20 years further ahead than we
Yes.
are now.
No, definitely,
But
I
in
think
terms
so.
of just how life was,
No,
it's definitely
no, not at all. And I think we had an interesting. It was June 16th recently, and one of my sons posted, the story of the Trojan horse and the four youngsters who died there, and then my children actually reflected on how grateful they are, and they say we're not grateful enough for these young people who gave their lives. So I think people have such short memories, man. Forgetting the sacrifices that people actually made.
Yes.
Yeah.
And apart from the sacrifices in terms of how society is actually opened.
Exactly.
And yes, there are still too many poor people. The poverty is still too then, and there is too much unemployment and all of that that we are grappling with. But in terms of, if I have to relate about my life then and now, I certainly can say I live a better life.
Completely,
than then.
I fully agree.
I feel much more safe than I did then. We always safety conscious because we not only had to deal with the criminals, we also had to deal with the police.
Exactly, completely. Yeah.
So while you went and focused your education, your further education on inclusive education, which was called special education before 1994.
Yeah.
My career went into, I was also a language teacher, and I went into the interrogation or the research into what is happening in a classroom and how do the learners learn, and specifically how are their experience of life brought into the classroom. And so that is what my set of my postgraduate interest in my studies. And I think it's similar because we were grounded in the challenges of the working class.
Exactly.
And we worked in working class communities. And your master's and my master's, I did mine at UWC.
Yes.
So you did yours at
Stellenbosch.
So the world was already changing around us. And at a certain, and then there's another, the point you also already made is that we went into the education department, became officials in the education department as a path of our careers. I was in language education, Afrikaans in particular, and you went into inclusive.
And learning support, also called learning support
in the schools. Just to talk about learning support, I had because we had a new curriculum, and one of the aspects that was new and different from the way we were educated at the university and prepared for teaching, one of the areas of language teaching was teaching listening skills.
Yes.
And so that was new, and for me, having that included in our curriculum became like a driving force, and I thought I needed to make a contribution in that. And so we did, a group of us in combination with cooperation with the Education Media Center, we developed a listening multimedia package for teachers. It's just an introductory kind of thing, listening to people's voices, listening to different accents, listening to different ages of people speaking in different situations. And the reason why I'm relating this is because that package was also used by the learning and reading people who supported in schools. What was it called again?
the literacy,
learning and listening, or learning and
That's right.
reading, or learning and listening,
That's right.
as inclusive education, and that made me quite proud actually that I made some contribution that people could use in terms of inclusive education, but was actually a broader mainstream issue that also needed
Yes.
to be developed. So there
Yes.
were many new things here that we
Yes,
had
I want to add is that I actually used
You've seen.
the package, and especially at the schools of safety, you know, because at the schools of safety, there was always an issue with the curriculum because the curriculum was out of sync with the age of the learners. So learners would be 16, 17, but they were still maybe at a grade 2, grade 3 level. And those teachers were always looking for material. And that package was something that I regularly recommended.
I'm trying to remember the title. Something about the ore.
Yeah.
Spits die ore. Yes, spits die ore.
Yes.
Yes.
And I knew I felt very good because I knew that you had worked on it, but we never ever spoke about it.
And so that was the kind of initiative that we could take.
Yes.
And that was never issues in our initial careers.
No.
Were very stifling in terms of the curriculum that we had to deliver.
Definitely.
Now, so in that sense, there's also a similarity.
Yes.
The other similarity that I think I would like us to talk about is how we, with our careers and with the development that we have already put into our careers, how we both, at a certain stage, decided, made choices that took us out of our careers.
Right.
Into a supporting role, but not losing ourselves.
Yes, completely.
Yeah. So I did that as a decision that I wouldn't have survived as a person, having had to give my full attention to my career, and as well as my full dedication to my family. And I had a big family. I had 4 children, I had 2 stepchildren and 2 children of my own. And the demands, I probably could have done it, but the demands are huge, because things must still happen at home. And the education department demands that things must happen there. So I probably could have made different choices, but I decided that I will support my husband's career. In any case, I would always say, having made that decision was made easier because of the many restraints we had to work with. We had progressive curriculum, we had progressive constitution, but we weren't allowed to be as progressive in our practices.
Yes.
Did you have a similar experience, or how did you experience the decision to step away, or out of, not completely away, but away?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I think you're raising such important points because I think when you are when you in a marriage, in a partnership, with a family, and we have 3 children, there are really demands being made on you, and one also wants to be true to yourself and as a feminist, you know, and the value that you have for yourself, and you also want to set a good example to your daughters, you know, of living life. And so some people will say, oh, you know, your career is everything. But I think both of us realized that actually we need to find that balance. And I think also, and I want to latch on to that last point you made about how it was almost easy to step away, because I was also very frustrated working for the education department, because I just felt there was just so much, but we felt so restrained, you know, and we were in the classroom, you know, we knew what the teachers were struggling with, but it wasn't lining up, like you were saying. We had this democratic government. We were excited the changes could be made, but it wasn't translating, and we almost always felt like, what am I doing? It's like I felt powerless. I just had to like follow an agenda. Yeah. And so that decision came. And the other reason I want to add, one of my big reasons was that when we started our family, I could not afford to spend time at home to raise my child. Very simply. Yeah. I was the main breadwinner in our family. Chris was the minister, and so I had to make my contribution.
Yes.
So I went back, and with all of them, I went back. And so that was quite an important factor for me, that I could then say, okay, I'm going to step back a bit. I can be there for my family, and also at an important time.
Yes.
Because they were teenagers, they were at school, they were at university, and then I became that mom who drove them, who could take them everywhere. Because before I had to work every day, a full day. And they still today actually really, really, really appreciate that, So I think the point that you're making is we didn't step back. We didn't lose touch with our careers, Yes. I think that's very important.
Yes. Yeah. And you made yet another change in teaching at the university.
Yes.
The University of Technology.
Yes.
On inclusive education. I never went back formally in any capacity, but I promised myself that although I don't have any full-time employment, my career didn't end.
No.
I wanted the last full stop of my career to be my PhD.
Exactly. That's what you did. You stayed. So you actually stayed in academia as well.
Yes.
You didn't.
And made for me, that is my contribution. There I'm leaving that. I'm leaving my master's mini thesis, and I'm leaving my PhD as my contribution, and the other articles that I've written. And then both of us, another similarity was that both of us married men who became public figures.
Yes,
they weren't necessarily public figures when we married them.
But definitely
so they became public figures. So how we started out and how we ended up was different.
Very different.
And my opinion is that being in a relationship, in a marriage with a public figure is very many challenges and many challenges for me as a woman.
Yes.
And although Russell and Chris, they knew that we were forces to reckon with, although we didn't contribute at a certain stage for the income, we were forces to reckon with in terms of what we had to offer.
Exactly.
In terms of the relationship and the marriage.
Yes.
And the family, I mean.
Exactly.
So then, but what I experienced was that society saw us differently.
Yeah.
Society questioned. Oh, actually, they didn't even see us, I would say. But
yes. Yeah, I think so. I think I can relate so many stories where you would see people and say, so you're coming together. So Chris and I are approaching people, and people come, and people literally push me out of the way. This is real. This has really happened. They push me out of the way to greet Chris because he's an MEC, or he's in whatever position he had. He's been through so many different roles, Yeah. And that they don't see you. You almost become invisible, and unless you actually make yourself known, and it's difficult. And also I think the whole thing around asking you and seeing you as saying, oh, you're Chris's wife, oh, you're Russell's wife, Russell's wife, and I never let it go. I will never let it go.
My line is, I am, but that's not all I am.
Yes.
That's not my whole being.
Exactly.
And even progressive people.
Exactly. This is what I'm talking about.
Them to sort of disregard you as a person.
Yes.
Luckily for us, our spouses didn't.
No, not at all.
Yes.
Not at all. Completely.
Of course, we wouldn't let it happen. But so being and it didn't stop us from developing even further.
Yes.
So both of us. You know, the thing that got to me, it was, I actually got a fright when Russell died. And I've been doing my PhD for many years,
Yes.
longer than I should have. But, and when I graduated at the end of 2014 after that, people were shocked. What? Wow, did that happen? And so that illustrated to me that they never ever took any time to understand who I was,
Yes.
what I was doing. And I was never out of education completely.
No.
I was always doing
Exactly.
things and always involved. And how can, and so I would say, but you just don't know me, or you just never saw me. What did you do when you say you don't let it go? What did you do to, when people, treated you like an appendix?
Yes, I think the first thing, I think you said earlier, you know, you would say that's not all I am, but I think I would also make that point, and I would say, hi, yes, I'm Charlene, and yes, I am married to Chris, but I'm actually Charlene first, you know. So that's I've always made that point, and I think sometimes, and I like what you said earlier, that even sometimes progressive people, because then people almost, they're a bit shocked.
Yes.
When you stepping forward and saying, but I'm, you know, this is who I am, you know, and sometimes people say, no, but I didn't mean it like that.
Yeah.
I know you didn't, but it's the first thing that comes to mind for you. You know, you rather want to talk about the husband than about the wife, whereas, you know, we see it differently.
Yeah, and then we were both ministers' wives.
Well,
that's another dimension.
That's almost a whole different conversation, but
Yeah.
Yes.
To me, being a minister's wife meant that I was married to the minister, who was the minister of the congregation in which I also served.
Yes.
So my participation in the congregation would be not because I'm married to him, but because I'm a member.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And but the expectations,
that's what I mean,
are different.
Are very different.
No?
Very, very different.
For example, I say this openly, I think I would never have become the chairperson of the women's ministry
Exactly.
had I not been married to Russell.
Yes.
Although being a chairperson is something that I could do.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
But people have certain expectations, but the expectations is also restricted to things like women's ministry.
Exactly.
And not of being a full participating member of whatever the needs in the community of the congregation is. Did you have that similar experience?
Yes, definitely. And so for me also, my father was a minister. So I grew up in a home where my mother was a juffrou, right? So a minister's wife was called a juffrou. And
I was also a
you were a juffrou. Yes. So, and this is actually one of the first conversations that Chris and I had, even before we got married. And he said to me, I do not expect you to be a juffrou. You are free to whatever talents and skills you have that you want to bring and that you see the need for, you bring that. That's what you do. You're not going to be the voorsitter of the vroue committee and all of those kind of things. You know, you choose your role and you make it work for you. So that's really what it's been. It's been difficult because every time when you moved on to a different congregation, then that struggle started again, because then people, you know, want to say juffrou and juffrou so, and then I almost have to say, and he had to say many times to them, no, this is not how it works. She will make a contribution. She can, you know, do that. And I think that we were lucky that we had partners, spouses who saw it that way.
Yes.
And it didn't make demands on us. Yeah.
I was lucky. It was just in one congregation.
Yes, you did. That's right.
It was just 4 years. So that, although I will always say that I because I lived out my choices
Yes.
in the church, although I I earlier said that I wouldn't have been elected as the chairperson.
Yes.
I was a member and I was active
That's right.
in the
Yes.
women's ministry.
Yes.
So it didn't make that big a difference
Yes.
to me.
Yes.
And of course, the congregation held their ministers in high esteem.
Yes, completely.
And they also have many demands on them.
Yes.
And don't see us.
Yes. Which
But
is,
it's, we knew what we
No.
had
No,
to-
I think so.
and
I think
could contribute. Yeah.
definitely, because I mean, that's also another discussion, being a family, because it also impacts children, and the expectations that the congregation has about the children and the family of the minister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our children were never under pressure, but they can talk for themselves.
Yes, no,
terms of
completely.
that.
Yes, no, completely. But it's always, I think there's that. I think growing up in the time that I grew up, there was like you had to be in every service, so we've been through all of that.
Yeah.
But luckily, I think our children had a different experience. Yeah.
I think I was also lucky because nobody ever challenged me openly about anything in the church.
No, they wouldn't.
Number one, I think, and Russell and I had a relationship. I'm not there under his protection, and he's never anywhere under my protection.
Yes.
I can see my own issues
yeah.
through. But I think what helped me was also that my family was also in the same congregation, and so that also helped.
Yeah.
But nobody ever challenged me on anything. I can say that.
Yeah.
And I didn't wear a hat, and I didn't do this, and I didn't do that.
Yes. No.
And yes, and with all these challenges and that we had to face for over so many years, or more than 4 decades.
That's right.
Our friendship has changed over the years. We've been in different provinces at certain times. We got together now. We are much closer in terms of distance, also. But we have just bonded in a very special way. And you know what? We went on our hike. But before I speak about that, it reminded me when we were there, and it didn't talk about it, but I thought about it afterwards. It reminded me of our days that we used to go to Genadendal.
I had the same thought, Beryl.
Yes.
It came to me and I remembered.
And how we used to travel in your auntie Nab's
Yes.
combi, and she would go to the wholesalers, and the whole combi is full of groceries that she had sells at the co-op there.
They had a co-op in Canada, and we were sitting there. Yeah, we were sitting amongst. That was all the experience.
Our lift
Yeah,
to Canada, and there we were, and we were sitting one morning at the breakfast table, and when they served muesli, and I always think of you when I eat muesli or I see muesli, and you don't know why. Is you introduced me to muesli.
Okay.
When we went to Genadendal,
yeah.
You brought muesli for breakfast. I never ever had muesli. I had jungle oats. We had mealie meal and what we call post toasties.
Yes,
and
that's right. Cornflakes. Yes.
But never muesli.
Muesli.
I don't know you. I think I'm telling you that
For the first time, no? I never
But whenever I eat muesli or I see muesli, I think
about
of
me.
you.
Wow.
Yeah. So there we were having breakfast in the Kruger.
Yes.
Not so long ago.
That's right.
You invited me, and my first response was, no, thank you. I'm not going to walk among the
That's
animals.
too much. That is too much. Too much for me.
It's not in my nature. And then luckily for me, Ilse said, Mommy, just think about it. What does it entail?
Yes.
What is expected of you? And actually, you have already walked in a nature reserve.
Yes.
And she reminded me and said, okay, Charlene, I'm in.
Yes.
But Charlene, wasn't that a special experience that we had?
It's amazing, Beryl. It's just amazing. Some days I still sit back and I think, I can't believe, it's almost like it was just such a special time, And I'm going to say thank you so much for going with me. for eventually agreeing to go, because you were the person I thought about, and I thought about who, if I'd already registered for the hike, and I thought, man, it would be nice if somebody went along, but I think Beryl will like this, and then Beryl says, no, I'm not sure. I said, okay, Beryl, it's okay, and then I was very happy when you came back and said, no, you gotta go. Yes, no.
So it was so special, and just for being there and getting up early in the morning in the cold, me getting dressed under the duvet,
warming a clothes. Did you warm your clothes under the blankets?
and not talking a lot. And this is the thing that I want to actually end, and thank you for that experience. And you know what it made me realize? Through my years, I had many challenges. I think my single parenthood wasn't such a big challenge for me. I think I had my support system, but being a step parent was a big challenge for me. And throughout our years, I could always talk to you about those challenges. And I will always treasure the fact that you were the one who suggested that I see a psychologist when things were just going out of hand. And I will always be grateful for that. And I did, and I made I drew my barrier lines and took care of myself and took hold of my own life. And there we were now in the Kruger. I didn't have any issues to discuss with you.
No, exactly. That's also, and I think, a friendship of so many years, there's so many things that can be unsaid and said and unsaid, because it's on a different wavelength. We don't have to, and I think that being comfortable with somebody, very few people that can say that they have people where they can be comfortable with, it's okay. We can just be together. And so I'm going to thank you so much for going with me and for being my friend.
Thank you,
It's been a special journey. Thank you, Beryl.
Thank you, Charlene. Walk tall, tell it all. You've been listening to On a Way with Beryl Botman. You can purchase my books online on Amazon, Take-A-Lot, and at bookstores like Exclusive Books, Bargain Books, Independent Bookstores, and Barnes & Noble internationally. To connect with me, please follow me on Facebook to learn more about my book launches and talks. You can write to me at beryl.botman60@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.